All right. Okay, then we shall start off with the minutes. We have draft minutes from the October 13th meeting that were distributed with the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Brittany Ward, Sandy City. I'll make the motion to approve minutes from last meeting.
Thank you. Brittany
Hey,
first.
Murphy.
Tom Tripp from Twill.
Sorry, go ahead.
Tom Tripp from Twill seconds it.
Okay, we have a second. Do we have any additions or corrections to the minutes? And one thing I will note, if you didn't scroll down to the list of meeting participants, is that they lost the screenshot of the meeting participants. And so the meeting participants list was compiled from memory. If you have a memory of being at the October 13th meeting yourself, and your name is not on here, it would be great to have an addition to the minutes. Anyone want to make any additions, corrections, suggestions for the minutes? Okay, I guess then the list of 18 shall stand. There's Ben is on here twice. Is it the same Ben? Ben Withrich is number 1, and also there's a Ben that's number 17. Ben, do you know who the other Ben is?
I think it's Ben White.
I see. There are 2 Bens. Okay, we have 1 correction to the minutes.
Ben, and Rebecca, I can't see if I'm on that list. Is there a way to screenshot what we had?
Yeah, I can do that. And your name is on, well, at least there's a Dave Murphy. You're showing on my screen as a David Murphy. I don't know if you're fussy about that.
That's fine. Same.
I just posted the draft meeting minutes in the chat. And if you scroll down to page 4, that's the list of the meeting participants.
Yeah, I guess I'm having a hard time with.
Would you like me to share my screen with that list?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you, Ellen. Any additions? Other than adding a last name for Ben White? Okay, then do I have, I guess call for the vote, right? So all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Go. Thumbs up and an eye, 1 eye. Okay, if no one is opposed, then we'll have the 2 people approve it, minute approval. Anyone opposed? Okay, so the minutes will pass. Oh, and we have Madeline asking to be added. Thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item. Ben has some updates for us on the tip. Take it away, Ben.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So you'll notice on the agenda there's 3 bullets under Transportation Improvement Program. The first bullet being a board modification. That board modification is not going to happen at this meeting. This will be something that we will come back. Normally, we like to give some information with the agenda to kind of give you a heads up as you come into the meeting. But that information, how best to say, isn't quite ready yet. So it'll come to the TAC probably in our March meeting or our February meeting, actually probably the February meeting, when we'll have another opportunity there. So that moves us into bullet number 2. So on your screen and attached to your meeting agenda or your meeting appointments, you should all see a list. This list is the concept reports that have been submitted. It is sorted by the city and then the agency. The reason the agency is important is there is like UTA or the Department of Transportation. If they have a project within a certain city limits or multiple cities, that'll be listed under city. But the important part of this is for you to review the list. So the first page and a half will identify the CMAQ projects. And then the next 3 pages plus will be the STP projects. And then the last 2 pages will be the TAP projects. The reason for showing you this is with the COVID, with the emailing from home, with individuals being sick, I want to make sure that we have all the lists. This morning when we presented this to the Ogden-Layton TAC, there were actually 9 concept reports that somewhere didn't come in on time, or well, they didn't come in. I had no record of them. They had been submitted. They had a timestamp, but anyway, I need you to look at the list, make sure that we have your concept report submitted. If there's an issue, if you'll please contact me. We are in the initial stages of the evaluation, and that'll bring us into the 3rd bullet there for our schedule. So from this point through the end of March, we'll be working on our evaluation of the projects. And as those of you that have been involved in this for the past years, part of our evaluation process is field reviews. We will be doing those field reviews in the early part to the middle part of February. Hopefully we'll have to work it around snowstorms, but we will have those field reviews that will contact you, set up an appointment. We'll have probably similar to how we had it last year. We'll have a team on the ground, which will actually be on site, meet with the project sponsor, and then we'll have the majority of the field reviewers participating via Zoom so that we can get that information out. We can have an opportunity to review the projects. If you'd like to participate, again, please let us know if you're not a project sponsor or there's not any other reason why we would contact you. So please let us know to be aware of that. But in February, we will have a virtual meeting. We will bring then to you a slide presentation of each project of all 3 programs. We'll review each of the projects with you so that you kind of have an idea of what we're going to be evaluating and looking at. Then these slides will be made available via a link for your later review or pastime entertainment if you want to take home and share with your family and friends. But then in March is a critical meeting where we will bring to you a staff recommendation to initiate the conversation on project recommendations. And this is where the TAC really plays a vital role in this process. With your expertise, with your knowledge, with your understanding of our total network, the ability to identify the best project for the funds that are available. So that'll take place in our March meeting, and that's about as far as we'll go today in talking about the concept reports and the project evaluations. Are there any questions from anybody? Guess not. Becca, turn it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Looks like our next item on the agenda is an update from UDOT from Andrea Olson on the Transportation Investment Fund, the TIF, and the Transit Transportation Investment Fund, the TTIF.
Yes, thanks, thanks, Becca. I just wanted to take a few minutes to update the group on where we are related to, like Becca said, the TIF and TTIF, as we affectionately call them. As you remember, or just as a quick review, the Utah Transportation Commission takes nominations for various types of projects. We've done it on an annual basis so far, and we do anticipate continuing to do it on an annual basis. But the project types are, so in the TIF bucket, the Transportation Investment Fund, we fund highway capacity projects and active transportation projects out of that. And then out of TTIF, we can fund transit projects and first last mile projects. So we end up with these two different funds, we end up with 4 different projects lists. And then what we do when we get those nominations is we rank the eligible projects. So we put them into our project prioritization model. And it gives us, it ranks the projects for us based on a number of criteria, and I'll show you where you can find that information. And then once we have those ranked lists, the commission uses those when, as kind of decision support tools for when they start making funding or programming decisions for each of those project types. So I am going to share my screen and just show you where you can find these, because I think there's a lot of information there about project prioritization in general that will hopefully be a resource for you. So if you just go to our main, this is UDOT's main page, udot.utah.gov. And if you scroll down to close to the bottom under the policy and funding header, there's a Transportation Commission link there. So if you click on that and then again, go down to almost the bottom, and there's a project prioritization process link. And at the very top, once you click that link, the very top of that is the ranked lists for active transportation, transit, and first last mile. Also on this page, I want to point out, like this new transportation capacity project prioritization process is kind of a whole manual of the different data points that we use, the different criteria that we use for what goes into this prioritization model. So I think there's a lot of information there. There's information on the schedule that we keep. There's the administrative rule that we operate under, and then the code, you know, where our project prioritization process is in state code. So I think there's a lot of information there for you if you're, you know, have some time to dive in. But I'm just going to click on one of these quickly and just give you a sense of what this looks like. So if you open this up, you can see, you know, they're in order. We show the score, we show the funding amount, what UDOT region it's in, and then who the nominating entity was. And keep in mind that on each of these 3 lists, there is a 40% match required on the part of the local government or the district. And so as we approach the commission potentially funding or programming projects from this list, we will start working with the nominating entities, either the cities or the counties or the transit district, to talk to them about, you know, is the funding, is your 40% match available? What kind of cash flow may work best for you? You know, is the project imminent or is it a couple of years out? We will be having those conversations with you know, the nominators of the top ranked projects, so that when we go to make a recommendation to the commission, we have a good understanding of, you know, is the cash flow going to work? Are we, you know, is the agency ready to receive this funding? We don't know exactly when the next round of funding will actually be. Remember, on the TIF side, that is programmed out into 2030 right now. So we just, you know, kind of need to wait and see. The legislature, what the legislature ends up doing, always plays a big role in this too. So there may be some opportunities through legislative appropriations, but so we don't have any exact cycles or exact times of when the commission would fund these projects, but we believe it's important to always have a ranked list of projects. So I am happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see more of you.
There had been discussion of a kind of a late winter, early spring round of selection, and that is or is not on the table.
Specific to one of the funds, or just all of them in general?
I guess all of them in general.
Okay, so I think the TIF is maybe the most up in the air, just because of that. You know, it primarily funds highway capacity projects, and like I said, it is programmed out right now into 2030. That doesn't mean there won't be any programming from there, you know, especially for active transportation projects. I think it's just a little less clear on that one. So I don't want anyone to leave this meeting thinking, well, they're not funding anything, even active transportation, until 2030, because we're trying hard to make sure that's not the case. On the TTIF side, I would say there's you know, a fairly good chance that something would happen in the upcoming STIP cycle. But you know, one of the things that the legislature did last year was authorize some bonding for UTA related to Front Runner that was to be paid. The bond payments are to be made out of TTIF, and so we're just trying to figure out what that cash flow looks like, and you know, assuming there's more in there, that you know how many transit or first last mile projects we could potentially fund. Again, we will be reaching out to sponsors and agencies to see, you know, how that works for them, the 40% match, what kind of cash flow they're in need of. So I think the possibility is certainly there. I just am not in a position to be able to guarantee anything.
Andrea, sorry. Should I go ahead, Becca?
Go ahead, Carrie.
I think I heard you say that these projects require 40% match. Is that all the funds except for TIF? Do TIF projects also require a 40% match?
TIF active transportation projects do,
But not.
TIF highway projects don't, because obviously, you know, I don't want to say there are projects on state routes. And so, you know, UDOT is expected and should, you know, foot the bill for those. So the TIF highway plays by a little bit different set of rules, but the other three all do require a 40% match.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yep. Okay, please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions about this, or, you know, point you in the direction of somebody who can get you more detailed information if I can't. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Moving along to the next agenda item, Kip Billings has a report. Will tell us about the report for highway transit and active transportation system performance. Kip, I think you might be muted. We are seeing your screen.
Okay, you can see me and hear me now, but I turned my screen off, right?
Yes.
Correct.
We see two of you, in fact. Okay, now we see.
Now you got the slideshow.
No, 1.5 of you. Yes.
All right. Well, apologize for that, but this is so much smoother than this morning. So consider yourselves lucky. Yeah, every year we like to share with our council kind of how things are performing on the highways and transit system. So this was presented to our council back in October. Since this morning's meeting, I did update some of the transit data from the UTA dashboard. So we'll have some more current information. We'll look at half a dozen performance measures for highways, a few for transit, and Hugh Van Wagenen helped me put together one slide for active transportation also. So we, starting with highways, for a number of years, we've been tracking the vehicle miles traveled on the highways. So you can see it's growing steadily at about 2%, going all the way back to 1994. Of course, with COVID hitting in 2020, there was a significant drop off. This VMT translates to about 5.6 million trips each day by vehicle in the Weber Davis Salt Lake area. Taking a closer look at what happened during the 2020 coronavirus lockdown, instead of growing by 2% each year, in 2020, the VMT was actually about 12% lower than what it was in 2019. In 2020, some of that came back to within 99%, but we should have been at about 104%. So if it were still growing 2% a year. So it has, the coronavirus has had an effect on VMT as well, even though volumes are approaching pre-COVID levels. This graph just illustrates the importance of arterials in contrast with freeways. The arterials actually, particularly in Salt Lake County, move more of the traffic out there than the freeways. They are an important part of the transportation system. So we don't want to only look at freeways. The arterials are key to distributing the traffic each day. And of course, in these charts as well, you can also see how things dropped in 2020. Vehicle miles traveled per capita, it's a way to measure how much the population is consuming, if you will, the transportation system. And it's been fairly steady for the last 25 years or more, at a little over 23 miles per person. Let's see, is this, I believe this works out to VMT per day. So, and of course that dropped off in 2020 when we had the coronavirus. But there's a perception that as we grow, people are just driving more and more and more. But this is telling us that the amount of driving we do is pretty much keeping pace with the growing population. These next two charts, that one was for the Ogden-Layton area. This is the Salt Lake area. Is it a ratio of peak speed to free flow speed? It's similar to travel time index, but we're using speed instead of travel time. So the areas in green, this is taken from the UDOT website or dashboard. Anyway, the roads shown in green, they're at 80% or better during the PM peak period. The speeds are compared to a free flow conditions. Those areas that are yellow are between 70 and 80% of free flow conditions. And those areas shown in red, you're less than 70% of peak period. Your peak period speeds are 70% or below what they are during free flow conditions. So it's an idea to give you an idea where congestion is most being felt in the region. And I'll give a link at the end of the slideshow for this information if you want that. So during the coronavirus, we learned a number of things about this working from home, remote working, like we're doing right now. The Utah Foundation prepared a report a year ago, titled The Way Home. And some of the conclusions from that report were they found that about a third of the vehicle miles traveled are related to people driving to and from work. And of those that are driving to and from work, up 1/3 up to 2/3 of those people could work remotely. And those that were working remotely, about 93% of the employees and the employers were expressing they would like to continue doing that. So I think from our experience of the past year and going on 2 years now, that virtual meetings and working remotely is likely here to stay. And we found that it's looking like it is a cost-effective congestion and emissions strategy. So probably be part of our transportation planning experience for the foreseeable future. Now, a few notes about transit performance. This is showing transit service usage going back to 2001. The area in blue is bus ridership. In red is the tracks or light rail ridership. The green area up here is the front runner. And then you have paratransit and van pools on top. And of course, you can see transit patronage dropped off significantly during the 2020 COVID year. Pre-COVID in 2019, there was about 147,000 daily transit users. And that dropped off significantly in 2020. In 2021, this data here is through about August of 2021. The daily transit passengers had dropped off to 70,000 per day. The front runners particularly impacted through COVID. Here's another chart from the UTA dashboard. The green line here is the 2020 COVID year. My wife and I just got back from our test, and I can verify that green is the color of COVID. So that's why we've shown that way. The lines up on top, that's pre-COVID 2017 to 2019. And you can see how that dropped off significantly starting in March and April of 2019. And in 2021, it has recovered some. Instead of in 2020, ridership was at about 40% of pre-COVID levels. That has rebounded to about 60%, but still current levels of transit use are well below the pre-COVID rates. This is transit passengers, annual transit passengers per capita. Gives us an idea how transit use is keeping pace with population. So it's fairly constant, but since 2015, that had been trending downward. And then this last slide is a little snapshot of active transportation. See the red line here is 2019. So you can see in 2020, during the COVID experience, you couldn't travel. A lot of people were temporarily out of work. So riding your bicycles was a popular thing to do in 2020. That has backed off somewhat in 2021, but still higher than pre-COVID levels. This is just a sampling of from the Strava application. A lot of bicycle users use that to track where they're riding. So, currently in 2021 anyway, recently, about 90,000 plus bicycle users a day that were using Strava anyway, about 3,000, I'm sorry, 90,000 per month. So that's about 3,000 per day. And whoops, I went too far. Here are the links. I will paste these into the minutes, but there's a link for the speed map from UDOT, and then the UTA data portal. I'll provide that link in the minutes as well. And that's what I had to share, Becca. I can entertain some questions if there are any.
Okay, any questions for Kip?
Kip, how much do you think gas price is holding down travel, just overall?
I'm sure that has an impact. I didn't do any kind of analysis, but years ago, when we saw gas prices spike, we saw a corresponding increase in transit use. This experience we're going through now looks a little different. So,
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, gas prices are going to trend upward in March, so you might see a corresponding rebound in transit.
yeah, I think a lot of people are discovering, employers and employees discovering remote working is a good alternative in a lot of cases.
Okay. Thanks for that, Kip. Moving along, I guess we have a report from Hugh on active transportation facility updates.
Yeah, thank you very much, and
Hey.
nice to see everybody today. And want to start off, let's see, by sharing my screen and putting a couple things into the chat here for reference later. And definitely want to say thanks to everybody that was able to participate with us in our Wasatch Choice Transportation workshops in the fall. Those were well attended, and appreciate all your input on all of those things related to the regional transportation plan. As part of a follow-up to that, we got a lot of great information regarding existing facilities there. And for those that aren't familiar, we at WFRC in cooperation with UDOT and MAG try and keep the road center lines data that's housed at UGRC up to date with bicycle facilities, both existing and planned. But today I'm here to talk to you specifically about planned. So in the columns that you see up on your screen right now, right, this is part of the data set from the road center lines, and way over in columns BM, BN, etc. There's room for the bike data. And you can see there's a bike _L, which stands for bike left. So what facilities on the left side of the road, bike _R, what facilities on the right side of the road. And in addition to what's being planned, and if it's a regional priority and what notes are there. So you can imagine trying to keep up to date with all of the existing facilities and changes that are happening as road restripings happen, as road widenings happen, and an AT facility is built with that either reconstruction or widening. It can be tough for us at WFRC and UDOT to keep track of these things. And we know it's not perfect. So we've set up something to help us with this. We have an existing map that's showing these conditions across the region. This is just an example here. You can sort of see what's on the ground today. And knowing this isn't perfect, we want to be able to give you an opportunity as the housers of the data, so to speak, or people that are implementing these new projects where some changes are coming in, to make a change request so that this map can get updated. And I'll just walk you through what this looks like, if that's all right. So let's say you get on the map. Again, I put that link in the chat. You get on here, and I was just talking to Jeremy Nelson, or Jeremy was talking to me in South Jordan, and said he just installed some buffered bike lanes in their community. So this is a good example of looking at this. And you can come on this map and say, oh, well, in that area where we just added buffered bike lanes, I can click on here and it'll tell me what's showing now. Well, existing says it's just a bike lane. So that's something that needs to be updated. How do I do that? How do I make sure these centerlines get it? Well, if you work with centerlines data, you can update those yourself. If not, you can send it over to us. And this form also that was put into the chat, you review that map and describe the extent of the project, what needs to change. And you can tell us, well, what's the map say now? Well, there was a 2B bike lane along that stretch of road on 13th West. When it said bike feature left, well, bike feature right, same thing, 2B bike lane. Well, what should it be? And now we're going to say, oh, it's going to be a buffered bike lane along that stretch. Perfect. Any additional information? We use this because sometimes the facility on the right side of the road is different from the facility on the left side of the road. You can tell us, it's a Cheryl on one side and a bike lane on the other, or maybe there's a paved path adjacent to the roadway, but bike lanes also in the roadway. It just gives us another opportunity to do that. If you have any images that you can share, whether that's a street view because something has been there for a while and hasn't been updated, or photos from your project, you can share those with us. And then we just ask for an email in case we have follow-up questions for you. But once that's submitted, then we can get those road center lines updated and get this map updated to keep it as accurate as possible. And of course, having an accurate existing facilities map not only helps with people using the system today, it also helps us plan future connections and routes that make it easier for everybody to use going forward. So that's the extent, real quick overview. Wanted to remind you or let you know that that tool was there. And again, appreciate your help moving forward and keeping this as up to date as possible. Happy to take any questions, but otherwise I'm done, Becca. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hugh. Does anyone have any questions for Hugh? Okay. Hearing none. Let's see if I have this correct. I think that we are going to hold on the presentation from Midvale City. Is that right, Ben? Did I understand your message correctly?
Correct.
Okay. And then other business. Does anyone have any other business to share with the committee? I guess one thing that's on my own radar, I'll just bring up is that as various municipalities as well as WFRC and our partners at UTA and DOT sort out what's happening with the federal transportation bill. I know it's on my radar that costs have been increasing on projects for construction due to inflation, and that projects also have a cost hit generally if they're federally funded compared to using local funds. And so I'm kind of interested if maybe I could have a show of hands from the committee, a virtual show of hands from the committee, about whether there would be interest in comparing notes on budgets and impacts of federalizing a project, and is that the same as what it's been in the past, or is that more or less, as well as just budgets generally. Is that something that maybe I could have a little bit of a show of hands from participants if you would be interested in bringing some information and comparing notes on that? Okay, I have a thumbs up. I have a hand raised. I'm scanning through. I'm not sure. Some people may be focused on other work. Okay, how many people are doing something else during this meeting? Multitasking while also working from home. Anyone vacuuming?
Listening.
That was the most
intently.
creative thing that I heard that somebody was doing during a meeting. I would have a hard time vacuuming myself, but it looked like there's at least a little bit of interest. So maybe that's something we'll contemplate putting on a future agenda. Anyone else have any other business? You can count on me to fill the silence. Okay, hearing no other business, we will move to call to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, I heard it first. Do I have a second?
Michael Fazio, City of Bluffdale. I second the motion.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Becca.